Hello, everybody. Okay, I'd like to get started. Dober večera. Good evening. Thank you for coming to celebrate this evening. The poets featured in the new anthology. This is called A Bridge of Voices. And it contains poems, interviews, and essays of about 18 different poets gathered over approximately 4-year period. It has really been a privilege to gather and now present these voices. Most of the contributors, I'm delighted to say, are here. Unfortunately, there are a few who couldn't be here. I think about 6 people, and we have some readers for those people. Joseph Young, a close friend of Jeffrey, I'm sorry. Thank you. Jeffrey Young, of course, Joseph Young. A close friend of Aleša Debeljaka will read his poems. Anna Jelnikar will read Meta Kushar's poems, and we're very happy that a group of students from Richard Jackson's class at the University of Tennessee are here and will read poems by Tomáš Šalumin, Josip Osti, Peter Semelic, Alenka Jovanovski, and Aleš Debeljak. I'd like to ask each poet to read for about 5 minutes. Some will read in Slovene and English. Some may only be in English. And the order will be the same as in the book, which is roughly chronological order. But the order is as follows. Tomáš Šalumin, Josip Osti, Meta Kušar, Boris Novak, Miriam Drev, Jeffrey Young, for Aleš Debeljak, Maja Vidmar, Barbara Karun, Barbara Simoniti, Uroš Zupan, Novica Novaković, Peter Semelic, Aleš Mustar, Primož Čučnik, Veronika Dintinjana, Alenka Jovanovski, and Aleš Debeljak. And in the interest of time, I won't be giving a bio of everybody because I know that you're all familiar with each other's biographies. So I'll just introduce the poet and the reader. So it is my pleasure to welcome the first reader for Tomáš Šalumin, Jared Steinman.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having us all the way from Tennessee. I'm going to be reading Small Wonder That Our Old Professor Is Now a Mayor of Rome by Tomáš Šalumin. I sat on a wall and sketched Perugia. Argan also dropped some coins into the alm box. For lunch at the pension they give us cat meat, at least that's what they say. I get better. I'll never pass that examination. Bracco is in love with Vera. Am I in love with Tatiana or with Vera? Or with Dunya? But not that Dunya who was in Perugia and is now an opera singer, but rather the Dunya that I was together with at camp. Vera and I saw each other in Greece. Bracco and I never saw each other at camp. The Englishwoman says that driving lessons here are practically free. Tone will be the cause of our breaking up. Don't even know how to use an eraser. In Split, Decan stole Vera from me. My surveyor abandons me in Orvieto. I watch the people burning in hell. They're naked and touching each other, and then they're included in frescoes, and then Western civilization clearly has nothing to point to but a brothel, and in churches at that. Thank you.
For Josip Osti, our reader is Noel Powers. Please welcome Noel.
Hello. I'll be reading How My Poem is Born. It happens when I sit down at my desk and try to write a poem that wild pigeons come flying into the room through the open window. They soar around me like countless domestic pigeons during my childhood in Sarajevo. When I get up to chase them out of the room, terrified, they flutter with their wings. In panic, they run into walls, mirrors, window panes. Their bleeding, wounded beaks leave red traces behind. The last one, the one who failed to find his way out, is lying on the floor with a broken wing. I care for him for a long time. When his wounds are healed, I carry him out of the house and set him free. For a long time, I feel the beating of his frightened but happy heart on the palm of my hand, the hand that is holding a pencil. This is how my poem is born, and in many other ways as well.
For Meta Kushar, we have Anna Yelnikar.
Well, it's a pleasure to be standing up here and actually having this honor of reading Meta Kushar's poem, who sadly, for some other unexpected obligations, isn't able to be here. But I also want to use this 1 minute just to say something which I think every poet sitting in this room shares. And this is, I want to extend one big, massive thank you to Barbara and to Rick for being such champions and lovers of Slovenian literature, culture, and for bringing it basically beyond the borders, the natural borders of where it emerges. And I mean, I met Barbara, remind me, when did we meet? I was trying to figure out today. 2004, and she was actually a student of Vermont College in Bled, a bit like all the students sitting there. And here she is now with this book, which I think is a tremendous contribution to Slovenian poetry, and not just poetry, also perspectives. I think this is incredibly important, the fact that there are these interviews that people can read and get more of a sense of where the poetry is coming from and what its take is on the contemporary world. And of course, Rick, I mean, if he carries on in this manner, he'll have a statue erected next to Prešeren on the Trg, Prešeren, for his contribution and love of Slovene things. So a big round of applause for this, I think. So I'm going to read a poem in Slovene first. It's called Prva miza. This is Meta Kušar. I wish it was me, but it's not. Prva miza. Temno-modra smokva zori. Mladiči lastovic še ne poznajo rdeče sladkosti. Zgarana lastovka jadra v vročini in poje, ko mladiči že sami love. Prehraniti 2 legli je skoraj umreti. Noga ene mize stoji na izviru. Zarana pobiram verze z nje. Sonce jo nagne in sadeži zdrsnejo, ne vem kam. Z rokami na kolenih poslušam, kaj mizica hoče. Zahodna je morska, ležerna. Pisma že 9 let nisem prepognila. Besede materializiram z juga na sever. Severa na sever? Ne vem, kje sem. Iz srca v srce je najkrajša pot. Z roko napisati pismo je prelepo. Najprej zakroži med zvezdami. netopirji ga obranijo vseh pasti. Kako brez papirja položiti glas na dlan? And now in English, and of course, translation is Barbara and mine. First table. A dark blue fig tree ripens. The swallows young still know of red, sweet things. The worn-out swallow sails in the heat and sings, while its young already catch on their own. To feed both nests is almost to die. One leg of the table stands at the source. At the crack of dawn, I pick the verses off. The sun tilts it, the fruit slide off, I don't know where. With my hands on my knees, I listen to what the little table wants. The western one is the seaside one, the leisurely one. I haven't folded a letter for 9 years. I materialize words from south to north. From north to north? I don't know where I am. From heart to heart is the shortest path. To handwrite a letter is lovely. First it does a round among the stars. Bats ward off all the traps. How to lay your voice in the palm without paper? And then I promise I'll get off the stage, sorry. But this is another little contribution to translation of Slovene poetry into English. It's a new selected poems and thoughts of Srečko Kosovel called Open. It's a tiny little book, but actually it's amazingly how rich it is. And we are launching this on Monday in Sežana at 5 o'clock in Kosovel's memorial room. And I'm hoping that everybody back there is coming. Okay.
Okay, and our next reader, please welcome Boris Novak.
I would also like to congratulate Barbara and Rick for this great anthology, great achievement, and very important event for the Slovene poetry, its reception in America and, of course, in all English-speaking countries. And standing here, I remember first seeing Rick at this time 31 years ago in Dalmatinova 11, in the apartment of Tomáš Šalamun and Metka Krašovec, who has also unfortunately left us a few days ago. And at the time, if memory serves me well, there was a problem with your tickets back to America, and we were desperately trying to solve the problem. We've gone a long way since then. There was a lot of cooperation. There were also tragic, terrible moments. There was a lot of solidarity. There was a help Rick and his students offered also to our humanitarian help organized by PEN for the refugees and writers in the besieged city of Sarajevo during the Yugoslav wars. And there was a lot of wine and laughter, fortunately. Since I'm an epic poet, measures of time are slightly relative for me. I will read a poem from my epos, The Doors of No Return, Vrata Nepovrata. And since the translator of that poem is here, Erika Johnson Debeljak, I will ask her to join me and then read her own translation. And I hope that we will hear also poems then of our dear friend Aleš. Cunjologija. Naša nona je vse življenje bojevala srdit in sistematičen boj proti prahu, blatu in vsakršni umazaniji. V ta namen je izdelala natančno strategijo, imenovano cunjologija. V slehernem trenutku je namreč razpolagala s kar 17 cunjami, ki jih je pošiljala v spopad zoper umazanijo kot general oklepne divizije na bojno polje. Bog ne daj, da bi jih nepooblaščeni zlorabljali za napačne namene. Kdor se je tako daleč pozabil, je bil nemudoma najstrože kaznovan. Celo lastni služkinji to zadevno ni povsem zaupala, zato jo je z budnim očesom nadzorovala, še rajši pa je armado cunj uporabljala lastnoročno in lastnonožno. Naštejmo te posvečene krpe in tkanine, zvesto sledeč znanstvenemu izrazoslovju noninega cunjoslovja. Prva, ta groba cunja za stopnišče pred vhodnimi vrati. Druga, ta fina cunja za marmorna tla v antreju. Tretja, ta mehka cunja za loščenje starega parketa po sobah. Četrta, ta šmucik cunja iz ostankov starih oblek za čiščenje bakrene plošče pod kaminov. Peta, ta velika upojna cunja za kamnita tla na terasi. Šesta, ta majhna upojna cunja za kamnita tla v kuhinji in kopalnici. Sedma, ta stara, vselej čista cunja za lonce in drugo kovinsko posodo. Osma, ta nova, vselej čista cunja za porcelanasti servis. Deveta, ta občutljiva cunja za vinske kozarce. Deseta, ta hitra cunja za nože. 11, ta zvita cunja za vilice. 12, ta pedantna cunja za žlice. 13, ta glanc cunja za srebrni jedilni pribor. 14, ta zauber cunja za ogledala. 15, ta speglana, skoraj prozorna stara cunja za likanje. 16, ta moška cunja za vojaške škornje. In 17, ta šik cunja za njene lastne ženske šolenčke z visoko peto. Nonine razlage velevažnih cunjoloških distinkcij so bile strastno pikolovske in temeljito premišljene. Noži so gladki in si jih ponavadi ne tlačimo v usta, zato zadošča preprostejša obravnava s ta hitro cunjo. Drobni ostanki hrane se radi zataknejo med zobe vilic, zato jih je treba skrbno izbezati s ta zvito cunjo. Žlice, ki jih tako radi ližemo, pa nezadržno privlačijo kar največje število bakterij, zato terjajo resne in radikalne higienične ukrepe, ki jih lahko zagotovi samo ta pedantna cunja. A vsa ta visoko specializirana in široko razvejena cunjologija, vseh teh 17 fanatičnih divizij antiprašne armade, ki jih je danonočno pošiljala v zagrizen boj zoper svetovno nesnago ter jih redno vzdrževala in menjavala, ves ta meščanski red, ki je predstavljal smisel in smoter njenega življenja, ni mogel pomagati, ni mogel preprečiti, da se naši noni ni življenje, da se naši noni ni življenje razdrlo, razsulo, nepovratno sesulo v prah in pepel.
Hello. Boris surprised me by asking me to read. I hope I can pull it off. It's a long poem. The word for grandma in this poem is nonna, which is the Italian word for grandma, and it's very sentimental here, so I left it nonna. I didn't change it to grandma. It's is it? Yeah.
That's how we call her.
But are you from Primorska? Your nonna was from Primorska?
She was living with my grandfather, who was an Austrian officer.
But why
in the
nonna
old
then in the
empire in Dalmatia?
Ah, cool.
That's why.
Okay. Because usually people who live in the near the Italian border call their grandmas nonna. Okay, but it's a lovely word, and that's why I didn't change it. Okay. Ragology, the study of rags. All her life, our nonna waged a systematic battle against dust, mud, and all manner of filth and muss. To this end, she developed a precise strategy, the study of rags, known to her family as ragology. At any moment, she would have arrayed before her some 17 different rags that she would send into combat as division generals in the battlefield. God forbid any unauthorized use of one or the other for the wrong purpose. Whoever did so received the strictest of punishments. In this regard, our nonna did not trust even her maid and followed her movements with the sharpest gaze. In the end, she preferred to dispatch her army of rags herself, with her own feet and hands. I shall now enumerate the various types of rags and cloth using the scientific terminology of nonna's ragology. 1. The rough one for the stairs to the front door. 2. The fine one for the marble in the entree. 3. The soft one for waxing the old parquet. 4. The plush one made from pieces of old clothing for the copper tiles under the hearth. 5. The big absorbent one for the stone floor on the terrace. 6. The little absorbent one for the stone floor in the kitchen and the bathroom. 7. The old clean one for the pots and other metal pans. 8. The new clean one for the porcelain service. 9. The sensitive one for the wine glasses. 10. The fast one for the knives. 11. The clever one for the forks. 12. The pedantic one for the spoons. 13. The shiny one for the silver. 14. The splendid one for the mirror. 15. The see-through rag for the ironing. 16. The mail rag for the military boots. 17. The chic rag for her own high-heeled shoes. Nonna's explanation for these all-important ragological distinctions was passionately detailed and deeply considered. Knives were smooth and generally not put in the mouth. Hence, a simple treatment with the quick rag would suffice. Little scraps of food tended to get lodged between the tines of the fork. Hence, the need for the careful treatment with the clever rag. Spoons, which we like to lick so much and which relentlessly attract a great number of bacteria, require serious and radical hygienic measures that can only be assured by the pedantic rag. But all this advanced and specialized study of rags, all of these 17 fanatical divisions of the anti-dust armada, sent day and night into pitched battle against the great filth of the world, regularly deployed and redeployed, all of this bourgeois order that represented meaning and purpose in her life could not help, could not prevent our nonna, our own dear nonna's life from falling apart, from being scattered about, irretrievably dispersed like so much ash and dust. Thanks.
Our next reader is Miriam Drev.
Hello. Thank you, Barbara, for including me and Rick. And I must say I liked Boris' poem. It's somehow familiar to me, this ragology. Bom prebrala najprej v slovenščini eno pesem iz zbirke Tirso. Prostor. Pri vrtiljaku. Zraven mene pobega utjulan, naveličan cirkuških norči. Bitje moje desne polovice. Položi mi glavo v naročje. Vrtiljak na travniku. Na vrveh pripeti sedeži bežijo mimo, nekaj je praznih. Tiste vzgon odnaša više. Lesene povrhnjice stolov gole. Zaprasketa raketa. Nekdo ustreli. Po poku poskušaš uganiti, kakšne vrste je naboj. Z dlanjo gladim črnikasti hrbet. Živalska in človeška koža sta eno. Nežnost. Vrtoglav pogled od spodaj, v enem krogu sem otrok, ki ga odrasla roka dvigne na stol. Po nekaj vmesnih pomagam svojemu, da vstane, shodi. Za osebno zgodovino, bežne povezave, opuščene možne načine življenja, ne obstaja merska enota, ki bi zajela obseg. Zatopljena v dotik. Čeprav se liki prekrivajo v izenačitvah, vsaka kontura otipljivo temni. Zabavišče okrog mene se razpušča, vzdrževalci izklapljajo motorje, čas je za odhod domov. Brezimen večerni vrtiljak. Malo še posedim. Vrvi obmirujejo, potem postanejo lahke. And the translation, I did it myself with generous help of Barbara. A certain space. At the carousel. Beside me, a forlorn seal, sick of circus tricks. Creature of my right hemisphere. She puts her head in my lap. A carousel in the meadow. Seats buckled on ropes twirl round, some empty. These lifted by the upward force. Wooden surfaces of chairs bare. A rocket crackles. Someone fires a gun. By the bank, you try to guess what type bullet. With the palm of my hand, I graze the blackish back. Animal and human skin equal, tenderness. A giddy glance from below. In one round, I'm a child, lifted on a seat by adult hands. After some that pass between, I help my own rise to her feet to start walking. For one's own history, past chances, unrealized life, there's no way to measure the bulk. Absorbed in touch. All those shapes are indistinct in their affinity. Each contour palpably darkens. The fanfare around me disbands. The mechanics turn off the gears. It's time to go home. Nameless nightly carousel. I stay sitting for a while. The ropes loosen, then settle lightly. Thank you.
And to read Aleša Debeljaka's poems, we have Jeffrey Young.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, you were supposed to have tonight Lukas Debeljak, rising star of Slovenian poetry, but he has a math test. tomorrow, so you get me instead. But wait a minute, how do I? A little bit like that, yeah. Excuse me. But in Lucas's honor and in his absence, I hope you forgive me. I would like to read one poem outside the anthology, outside of the collection, from the book The Names of Death, Aleš's first book. Boris, can you help me? His first book, right? Yeah. Which year?
Well, that was actually his second book.
That's what I was going to say. It's not his first book.
From the middle of the 80s, the first 1985. 1985. The first one was actually included into an almanac of several
Okay.
10 young poets of the time.
And this, and so meaning Aleš was approximately 23 years old, 24, old guy. And this is translated by Lukas and Erica Johnson Debeljak, his beautiful mother, number 7. Let me put this down here. From the book Unpublished Translations in Progress, I guess, Erica? Yeah. Translation in Progress, The Names of Death. Quieter chambers and a setting sun and an endless gallery of empty pictures. An envelope with the miniature coat of arms of a noble family in the upper right-hand corner. Absinthe that won't evaporate. No one. Without taste or substance, even less than someone dared to think. From day to day, it came after, submerged even deeper. Where the unquiet lust in the liver grows and slowly rises to the surface with no interlude. Glassy floodwaters falling over dams and embankments. An old wound risks opening like a shift in the rind of the earth, shuddering from aftershocks. Oh, years of thirst and intolerance, oh, years of thirst and intolerance, and how many connections between what is lost and what is attained to fulfill all that must come. How much ringing in open windows where the motionless luster of evening hours returns an image that was never there in the first place. Now and indefinitely overcome by many ecstasies and a verse that no one knows by heart. Not even the old masters. That's the way it is. From the collection. I don't know which book this is from. It's called The Frozen Monarchy, after Tomáš Šalamun, the ballad for Metka Krašovec. Deep below the bowels of a boat, cutting through breakers, no trouble, carting survivors to God knows where, aware on a sunny day of its sinking. So many years ago, some have already forgotten. You can see them, the cities and piers, fun parks and parliaments, how they're in line to be punished. They last in a spasm, locked in shocking ice. It glimmers a shade of blue, the same hue for everyone, for the looters of nests and altars, as for dandies with a finger on the trigger. Deep down, where slackened wishes to be forgiven have tacked like metal to ice, with a grimace of pain. The oldest would know the song. It sounds like a face from the fairy tales, pronounces the prophets different from despots, although they all feel the cold, save those who wanted to save themselves by climbing the slippery crests of a slope to shear the surface and swim. There, an old captain my country admires dances on deck in his bare feet, and buttons from blouses and whitish teeth are sprinkled all around. And I, too, forget what survives, how deep the wounds have dug, and begin to speak as a river does, muddied and with my mouth. Trieste, Vienna, September 2001. Voilà.
Our next reader is Maja Vidmar.
I will read 2 poems, and I feel very brave because I will try to read in English also. and translator is Andrej Hiša. Z očetovim mlekom sem pila trdno arhitekturo hiše. A še v teh prostorih sem se zvečer pokrivala čez glavo in nobenega dvoma ni. Na odprtem bi prišli, ki jih ni, in me požrli. Težko je s hišo v glavi. Zvečer sedem na zadnji prak in jih zateglo kličem, ki jih ni. The house. With father's milk, I drink the solid architecture of the house. But even in those rooms, I'd cover up my head at night, and there is no doubt. Out in the open, they'd come, those who don't exist, and devour me. It's hard with a house in your head. In the evening, I go and sit on the threshold at the back door and wail, calling those who don't exist. Izak. Kadar Izak spi, mu pokrivam perutničke, ga gledam, kako diha in ga voham, kakor da je moj. Ko mi Izak maha, ga svarim čez cesto in trepečem, kakor da je moj. Ker ga spuščam, ko 3-krat potrkam, ga spuščam vsak dan med zveri. Kako naj rečem, kakor da mi je vseeno, Izak pridi greva na visoko goro. Kako naj iščem tnalo, gladko, čisto tnalo zanj. Kako naj z nožem, kakor da mi je vseeno, z golim, sivim nožem živega, kako naj ga odrežem stran. Izak pridi, greva. Isaac. When Isaac is asleep, I cover his little wings, I watch him breathe and smell him as though he were mine. When Isaac waves to me, I warn him crossing the street, shivering as though he were mine. For I let him go, knocking on wood 3 times every day. I let him go among wild beasts. How can I say it as though I didn't care? Isaac, come, let's climb the mountain high. How can I seek a block, a chopping block, smooth and clean just for him? How can I take a knife, as though I didn't care, take a knife, grey and bare? How can I cut him off? Isaac, come, let's go.
And please welcome Barbara Karoon.
I will read. First, thank you to Barbara and Rick for the anthology and translations. I will read 2 of my poems, first in Slovene and then in English. And the translator of the first one is Barbara, or we did it together in collaboration somehow. So it's dva. Dva se slačita. Slečeta obleko, sezujeta čevlje, snameta nakit in uro. Do gole kože se slečeta. Se slačita dalje. Z dlanmi božajoč slečeta poklic, ime, vsakdanje navade. S potrpežljivimi poljubi slečeta svoje prejšnje ljubezni, svoje želje. Z globokimi ugrizi svoja leta, svoje slo. Spol slečeta drug drugemu z usti. Si slečeta otroštvo, to traja najdlje. Mamo, očeta izmivata s prižemanjem, s trenjem meso ob meso, da spusti sok. Prihajata do temnega, nikoli poimenovanega. Za nazaj mu dajeta imena in jih sproti pozabljata, ko zagorijo. se slačita dalje, skozi jok, smeh, stoke, krike, do neimenljivega, telesnega, onkraj rojstva. Gola sta. Two strip each other. They take off their clothes, their shoes, remove their jewelry and watches. To the bare skin they strip. They strip further, stroking with their hands. They take off their professions, their names and habits. With patient kisses they strip off their bygone loves, their expectations. With deep bites their age, their lust. With their mouths each other's sex. They take off their childhood. This takes the longest. Mother, father, they wash off by hugging, by rubbing, flesh against flesh, pouring out juice. They reach the dark, never named in the past. Now they are giving it names and forgetting them, caught in the fire. They strip further, through crying, laughing, moaning, screaming, to the nameless body beyond birth. Naked they are. In še eno. This one is translated by Barbara Siegel. Hannah Arendt poroča o sojenju Eichmannu, Jeruzalem, Izrael, maj 1962. Zato poezija ne zadostuje. Več tisoč strani poročil. Vsaka beseda ima pred sabo ime, vsako ime je človek, telo, duh. Vsakdo naj odgovarja za to, kar je rekel, kar je storil. Ne pred Bogom, pred ljudmi, pred sodniki. Tu ni prostora za poezijo. Vrstijo se paragrafi, pravila, člen za členom, zakoni, ustave, resolucije, amadmaji. Obupan poskus, edini, ki šteje, zagledati zlo, ga povezati z imenom, ime z osebo postaviti pred sodišče. Potrpežljivo slediti vsaki vijugi črk, ne da bi izgubili smisel izpred oči. Pozabiti na lastno bolečino, omejiti zlo, samo to. Ne, poezija ne zadostuje. A prav ona je vir luči, ki zmore zlo napraviti vidno. Le zaradi njene natančnosti zmoram ločiti sloje osebne in obče resničnosti, slediti neznanski navidezni povezanosti vzrokov in posledic. Razpadli so mi vsi sistemi pravičnosti. Razpadel mi je jezik. Sestavljam ga nazaj, potrpežljivo, natančno, stran za stranjo, stran za stranjo. Tudi brez jezika znam biti pri sebi. Brazgotina v jeziku mi služi, pričuje čuječno. Ves čas, ko pišem, mi prišepetava nasprotno, uničujoče nesmisle, razbrzdene igre besed in usod, vse vrste nemožnosti. Z divjo, nezaustavljivo močjo mi trga resnico iz rok in mi jo vrača isto, a spremenjeno. Senco, neizmerljivo in trepetajočo, ki stvarem šele daje obliko, dejanjem pomen. Hannah Arendt is reporting to the trial against Eichmann, Jerusalem, Israel, May 1962. Poetry won't do. Several thousand pages of reports, each word preceded by a name, each name a human being, body, spirit. Let everyone account for what they say, for what they did, not in front of God, but people, in front of the judges. There is no room for poetry here. There are rules and regulations, article by article, laws, constitutions, resolutions, amendments. a desperate attempt, the only one that matters, to perceive evil, to link it with a name with the person and put the person in court, to patiently follow each curve of the letters without losing meaning from sight, to forget about one's own pain, to limit evil, merely this. No, poetry won't do, but it's precisely poetry, this source of light, that can turn evil visible. It is its exactness that allows me to distinguish between layers of individual and social reality, to trace the immense interconnectedness of causes and effects. All of my systems of justice have fallen apart. My language has broken down. I'm rebuilding it patiently, carefully, page by page, page by page. Even without a language, I can keep my sense. The scar in the language is serving me, testifying vigilantly. As I'm writing, it's whispering to me the opposite, destructive nonsense, unbridled plays of words and fates, all kinds of impossibilities. With a wild, unstoppable power, it is tearing the truth from my hands and returning it the same, but altered, with a shadow, immeasurable and quivering, giving forms to the things and meanings to deeds.
And our next reader is Barbara Simoniti.
There are quite a number of Barbaras in poetry in Slovenia, and I'm one of those. So my sincere thanks to both the editors of the anthology and quite honestly, of all the anthologies I've ever come across and at least leafed through, this is the only one that is really something special and stands out. And being myself a professor of Slovene and English literature, the anthologies were quite a few. Most of them do the unbelievable bad thing and simply translate a few items of each author and add the year of his or her birth and death and 2 sentences as to their profession, interests, way of life, and that's it. And such anthologies are, you know, a superficial thing that just floats by. Whereas in this anthology, the main part is a series of questions that present you not only as somebody who writes poetry, but as a living, breathing being, intellectual being, with all the ways and all the differences between the 2 languages and the 2 cultures that are being paralleled. The one of all the authors and the other of all the readers and interested people. And this is the only way to bridge the gap between 2 cultures as various, as different as the 2 above mentioned. And so it really enables the readers to have more of the poetry that is enclosed in the book than just the mere words with no explanation, no logic, no point of direction, and basically little sense. So I remember it took me 2 weeks, entire weeks of days and nights to answer those 12 questions in a meaningful way and with the ability to present myself in 12 different ways, points of views, for those slanted perspectives that are going to present me and represent me somewhere else on the other side of the world and in a different time. For that reason, I'm reading English alone tonight. For all those who are the readers already tonight. These two poems are from my poetry book, Water. I have been writing into the river for a long time, leaf by leaf, with a whisper of tree characters, while the egrets fall silent and stand still, motionless, and a coppery kingfisher dashes under the lids of moss. Bitter sketches are flying off my skin in the final wind before the dusk. It does not grow back over broken bones. And ever longer words are sloughing off me, a calendar scattered into a tin pond, so that I would spell myself into the autumn. Yet there are ever larger drops of blood among the torpid birch and naked willow, falling among the shadows on the waves, biting into the water and washing away the trace of life. All the riverbed is my bathtub made of grey stone, with slippery stairs of mud and gnarled wood leading thither. When I pluck up the courage to pass them with odd steps, the immortal ghost of myself. The blossoming grasses and poppies are fading when I immerse my feet and furrow the willowy pond. Some pebbles at the bottom tingle, while the marsh marigolds darken on the bank. I'm being swallowed up by the wet jaws of water, as clear as glass, from ankles upwards, being rendered breathless by its cold over my skin. There is more of me in each gulp and less of the hollow doll left ashore. And in those moments that are eternity, I know for sure it is not worth coming back. Thank you.
Our next reader is Uroš Zupan.
I will read this only in English because I don't consider myself as an epic poet, but this is quite a long poem. So if I read an original version in Slovene and then this version in English, it will take us, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes. So I wrote this when I was 26 years old. Now I'm 54. Psalm, Magnolias in the April Snow. Let us bite through the chains of enchanted words, Father. Let us melt the iceberg of silence which has grown between us. I'm ready. I have disconnected the telephone, locked the door. There is nobody left in my world. Now my psalm will sing to you about dreams, you call them dreams, of springs, of blossoms, of water which the magnolias drink when they open in the April snow, of evenings which have encamped in my head. Long purple clouds glide above the earth. You see them, Father. You see right through them, while your silhouette, as it stands on the threshold, is being embraced by the cold wings of the night. No, they cannot be classified. They cannot be appointed places in the calendar of escaping days. I cannot, Father. I do not even try. It is not my intention to spend endless hours in the mouths of various offices, between lips that sip cheap perfumes, the want-a-fuck smelling of cheap spirit of business colleagues. For me, verses, long, wild verses, which run like horses in the yearning of a traveler, like the crystal, cold water into which I slip naked, verses which are present from the air, verses which I forever hammer into the paper. Verses measure time, Father, my time, our time. They are the only things which set the milestones of our mortality. Now my psalm will sing to you of the world that you will never enter, of heaven and hell, of ecstasies they have possessions over me, and of the falls of Icarus, of the magical union, the divine connection, which is felt by jazz musicians when their instruments with unusual ease addresses the shadows and draw the kaleidoscopic images in the unknown fragrant night on empty streets where the less drunk stagger and cat muzzles peer out of dustbins. Now my psalm will sing to you of Kafka, about how he wrote a long letter to his father and never found enough courage to send it. No, you have never heard of Kafka, though you have ordered the world's classics, though every Saturday you dusted your books. Too unstable a world for you, too intangible a world for you, and my friends spoke to me about their sick experiences with their fathers. I wanted to beat him up, said one. He was lucky, however, to die. Cancer, cirrhosis of the liver. We were all relieved. We were all afraid to confess that in seclusion we shed tears. And we, Father, we have met for years now, the way trains meet, at fixed places, at fixed times, ice cold, with a crash of speed, with live cargo inside ourselves. We are stubborn, stubborn. Now it's time, Father, to hear my psalm. A psalm which is breaking through the claws of darkness, which is setting fire to the leaves of forest paths, which like a bird sits on mountain slopes. A psalm which is whispered by the fish and the stones. A psalm which is whispered by the man of the rain and of the sun. I'm preparing myself for war, Father, for war. And you know that I'm going. You are more scared than I am. Yes, the hardened castles of habits will have to come down. Let ivy overgrow them. Let princes peacefully sleep in them. Yes, fingernails will have to be broken and skin wrinkled. And there will be many victims, many hours of stillness, silently breathing between four walls, on bridges, which lead across the metaphors of eternity, when the only food will be the dust of dreams, and the only sanctuary the transparent body of false love, and the silver pieces will cease to be, and I will not feel like Judas Iscariot, who was bribed to betray the one who loved him most. And maybe I will be the winner, maybe the loser, but I will always remember you when I see the clean-shaven employee who didn't try anything unusual, who didn't break a single rule, who curses because he cannot find a parking space, who wrote boring love letters to his wife. And you will also remember me if somewhere you start drinking beer by yourself and everything around you starts to crumble to dust, and for the first time in your life you say, let it all go to hell, I don't care. And for the first time in your life you will have the feeling that there is something else, something unusual, some piece of the moon above us, and some bright moments which open to us like the magnolias of my dreams. Magnolias opening in the April snow. Thank you very much.
And please welcome Novica Novaković.
Pozdravljeni vsi. Hello everybody. Barbara in Rick, svobodni. Thank you. Hvala. Prebral bom eno pesem Brezglavi jezdeci. And I would like to ask Bennett, one of Rick's students, then to read English translation. Brezglavi jezdeci. Kje ste zdaj brezglavi jezdeci? Kje so vaši totemi? Kje je vaša revolucija? Svojo ideologijo bojevanja in uporništva ste zamenjali za udobje in brezdelje. Svojo svobodo za obveznosti in odgovornosti. Polni omahovanja in cencanja ste vse užitke brezmejnega fukanja prodali za masturbacijo. Ni vas več, nikjer več vas ni. Za vami ni ostalo nič, razen drobnih zapisov, besed, slabih verzov. Za vami prihaja druga generacija, še bolj uporna, še bolj drzna. Generacija, ki ni priklenjena na samo potrjevanje, saj zaničuje vso navlako sodobne družbe. Kdo ve, ali bo uspelo spremeniti planet na bolje, ali pa bo vsaj začrtala pot neki tretji generaciji, ali še kasnejši, ki bo prinesla spremembe, ki bo vrnila mir in modrost, ki bo vdihnila strast v opustošeni vsakdan. Tako ležim na tleh, izčrpan in zmeden in bulim v strop, ki se vrti. Priznam, zadnje čase sem preveč odprt, preveč čustven. To bi bil lahko bumerang, ampak naj bo. Nekega jutra me tako ali tako ne bo več. Pobral bom svoje stvari in izginil, brez besed, brez poslavljanja. Enostavno se bom obrnil in odšel, kakor okrutni brezglavi jezdec, ki še vedno verjame v svet. Hvala.
Thank you for the opportunity to read. Headless Horseman. Where are you now, Headless Horseman? Where are your totems, your revolution? You've traded in your ideology and disobedience for comfort and idleness. Your freedom for obligations and responsibilities full of hesitation and wavering. You've sold the pleasures of endless fucking for masturbation. You're gone, all gone, and nothing of yours remains, except for some puny notes, words, feeble verses. Another generation precedes you, even more disobedient, even haughtier, a generation unchained with self-affirmation, for it despises all the modern society, junk, who knows whether it will manage to change the planet for the better, or at least forge a path for some third generation, or a still later one that might bring change, restore peace and wisdom, breathe passion into the desolate every day. So I lie on the floor exhausted and confused and stare into the revolving ceiling. I admit being too open, too emotional recently. This could backfire, but let it be. Some morning I'll be gone anyway. I'll pack my gear and disappear. No words, no goodbyes. I'll simply turn around and leave, just like a cruel, headless horseman who still believes in the world. Thank you.
And the next poet, Peter Semelich, and his reader is Julia Anderson.
Hello. This is Piero della Francesca's Angel. He is no longer the bringer of light. He himself has become the object of the play of light and shadow. Caught within the laws of the material world, he kneels like someone asking for forgiveness. Getting up would probably make him a little dizzy. Girdled with rope, his robe gathers in folds around his waist and around his knees. His wings are heavy, almost fleshy, as though he were ashamed of his fall into the realm of sensation and architecture. He kneels steadily on the cold marble floor, keeping his face in shadow. Veronika, September, October 1992.
Okay, and please welcome Aleš Mustar.
Always one poem in Slovene and in English translation by Manja Maksimović. Randalska. Ata, ko sem danes iskal ciganski ražen, ki ga je zakrival ponosni plinski trinožec, sem zagledal oreh, ki ga mama v oporoki nikoli ni zapustila samo za rožničkemu stricu. Ali vidiš, koliko premore ljudska modrost? Ko nalagam suho dračje na ogenj in vse tako lepo diši, znova vidim prizor, ko si šel krsti v zemljo. Mamo, ki je nezavedno skrbela za umetnost, pa so proti njeni volji sežgali. Njej v spomin kurim orehovo listje. Danes se mi oči solzijo samo še zaradi dima. Moja liričnost je šla s tabo skupaj v zemljo. Odtekala je tiste 3 dni, ko sem gledal tvoje mrtvo shirano telo, ki se ni prav nič napihnilo. Zaradi tega so vaške opravljivke ostale brez priljubljene teme, grobari pa brez fizičnega napora. Ne vem, kaj je bilo muham ljubega na okostonelem telesu. Ata, ko so pokopavali mamo, sem nosil sončna očala. Mama pa nikoli ni prišla do tebe, saj je za žaro dovolj že pičlih 30 centimetrov globoka jama. Na parah te lahko zadnjič prijela za roko. To pa je bil zadnji melodramatični prizor, ki mi je zvabil solze. Ne bom šel na mašo posvečeno obletnici tvoje smrti, v roke bom vzel motorno žago, razrezal oreh, zakuril kres in razkužil zrak. Sežgal vse balastne besede, uničil zadnje klice lirizma. Randall poem. Grandpa, as I was looking for the grill today, which was concealed behind the proud gas burner tripod, I laid my eyes on the walnut tree which Grandma in her will had never left to my self-publishing uncle. Do you see how deep folk wisdom is? As I'm replenishing the fire with dry twigs and everything smells so nice, I can see you again in the coffin, lowered into the ground, while Grandma, unaware of being a patron of art, was incinerated against her wishes. I'm burning dry walnut leaves in memory of her. Today it's only the smoke that makes my eyes water. My lyricism has gone under with you. It dripped away during those 3 days while I was watching your dead shriveled body, which didn't swell one bit. This left village slanderers without their favorite subject, and coffin bearers with no need to exercise their muscles. I don't know what it was that flies found so dear on the ossified body. Grandpa, when Grandma was buried, I was wearing sunglasses, but she never got to where you are, since a hole no deeper than 30 centimeters is enough to bury an urn. The last time she could hold your hand was on the catafalque. I'm not going to attend the mass held on the anniversary of your death. I'm going to grab hold of a chainsaw, cut up the walnut tree, build a bonfire, and disinfect the air, burn up all the excessive words, destroy the last buds of lyricism. Thank you.
Our next poet is Primož Čučnik.
So I'll read one poem. Translators are Anna Pepelnik and Joshua Beckman, and then I will ask Anna Jelnikar to read it in English. Moje hortenzije. Jezik je ena od skupnih zadev. Zato moramo skozi strukture dialektov, narečnih posebnosti in slengov, da se razumemo. Isti jezik, ista težnja po svobodi, pa toliko nesporazumov. Narod je univerzalna množica posameznikov, ki so pokazali jezik drugi univerzalni množici in tako naprej. Ali pa je to nacija, ali pa je to Evropa. Kaj govorim? Naš cilj je, da jih čim prej ujamemo. Zakaj nam stare strukture prečijo signale in motijo oddajnike? Zakaj nam ne nese dlje? Saj ni rečeno, da nam ne, ampak o tem so nas prepričali. Vendar ostaja vprašanje, kdo in zakaj nasedamo. Smo res tako naivni, da še nismo odkrili misterija države, lepila, ki jo lepi skupaj. In če bi ga, ali bi še rabili govore? Kaj bi proslavljali namesto vlad? Moje hortenzije, moje hortenzije. Ali je slepilo univerzalno, ali se lepimo posamično? Kaj govorim? To je obdobje novega optimizma. Samo da bomo zdravi, samo da bodo obrodile trte. Vsak pri sebi ve, kaj so njegove hortenzije. Govorica je skupna stvar, ki nas lomi. Ljubezen nosi culo pogojnih skrbi. Mak je njena verižica. Da se razumemo. Sum nas straši. Les se suši, nam dela prisluhe. Lep jezik zagatno zaliva. Zaliva in liže in lepi moje hortenzije.
Primož sprang this on me and I had to check the pronunciation of the title. My hydrangeas. Language is one of the common things that we must... Sorry, I'll start again. My hydrangeas. Is it right? Okay. Language is one of the common things. Thus we must go through structures of dialects, idioms and slangs, so to speak. Same language, same tendency for freedom, yet so many misunderstandings. A nation is a universal multitude of individuals who stick their tongues out at another universal multitude, etc. Or is it a nation? Or is it Europe? What am I saying? Our goal is to catch them as soon as possible. Why are old structures crossing our signals and jamming transmitters? Why can't it go further? Nobody said it can't. We were just told so. The question remains, why do we fall for that? Are we so naive that we still didn't discover the mystery of the state, the glue that sticks it together? And if we did, would we still need speeches? What would we celebrate instead of governments? My hydrangeas, my hydrangeas. Is the glue universal or do we stick together individually? What am I saying? It's the era of new optimism. As long as we're healthy, as long as the vines will bear fruit, one knows what his own hydrangeas are. Language is a common thing that breaks us. Love carries a bundle of conditional concern. Poppy is its necklace. Don't get me wrong, suspicion frightens us. Wood is drying, causing voices. Beautiful language waters weirdly, waters and licks and sticks together my hydrangeas.
And please welcome Veronika Dintinjana.
Levi na pročelju katedrale. Tretjerazredni marmor so načeli dež, mraz in vročina. Podobni so vrhovom valov. Za hip privzame obliko in že se razpustijo v peno. Smehljajo se. Morda vejo, da kopnijo. Cathedral lines. Rain, cold, and heat have corroded the low-grade marble. They're like the crest of a wave. For an instant, take form, and already dissolve into foam. They smile. Perhaps they know they are disappearing. Sparrow through a hospital window. I saw death sit down beside him on the bed and take off her slippers. His blood pressure dropped. His face paled as she lay down. His eyes were frightened. I flew out. As I did not have a share in his life, it was only right not to have a part in his dying. Half an hour later, I returned to pick up the breadcrumbs left over from lunch. Hvala.
And for Alenka Jovanovski, our reader is Jonah.
I'll be reading Secrets of Wise Ones. The role of a younger sister is becoming for me the one that makes mistakes and stutters and runs in front of what desires with a freshly injured knee. My arms are full of little dots, dark brown constellations searching for the sun that would create magnetic fields and embrace them as if in one big happy family. In the morning before the cells split and do not yet die when nothing is just half, silence is a thin gauze, cooling down pleasantly. It will stretch, become my skin. With my bare hands I now need fire, and this is discipline. Clarity rises only after centuries.
And Aleš Stager is the final poet, and his reader is Sarah Simmons.
Don't worry, you can almost go home now. All right. So I will be reading a poem called Bread. Every time he leads you into temptation to become a gentleman who feeds on crumbs under his servant's table. He asks you to do him harm, for you to stab him, to shred him to pieces, consume his still warm body. Without shame he appears to you, naked as at creation. He is a pervert. He provokes you with abstinence. But he is being given you, and you give. And every morning and every evening you repeat the flowery game. He made you into a crematory of guilt. When he feeds you, you speak and instantly are more famished. Yes, yes, he loves you. That is why he accepts your knife. He knows that all his wounds crumble in your hands. Vala.
Thank you, everybody, for coming, everybody for reading. Thank you, poets. Thank you, audience. And I hope you enjoyed it. I just want to say one thing, that the book right now is an ebook, and it's available on Amazon. We are working on a hard copy, a printed copy, becoming available next year. And if you're interested in getting one, and I don't have your email, I have a piece of paper that I would appreciate if you put your name and email address, and I'll send you information as soon as that is out for the printed copy. So thank you all, and Loka Noche.